Alright, good evening. Welcome everyone to the channel. Welcome to the stream. This is a quick one as always, doing a little one-shot. I'm Eric. I'm a photographer, naturalist, writer, cinematographer, and film director. And today we're going to be exploring some photography from Alaska. So, it'll be fun. Just a one-shot. This should be probably, 20 to 30 minutes in length, just keeping it real short as we kind of go through the entire process, more or less, of editing one of my photos. As always, comments, questions, thoughts, please feel free to leave them in chat. Leave them and make this as much of a collaborative process as possible. It's part of the fun of art. And also, if you're a photographer or an artist of any kind, drop your work in the chat. Feel free to share links. This platform should be ours as much as mine. Hello, Maria Lisa. Aren't you supposed to be working? Anyway, I'm glad you're here. And Stephanie, hello. Glad you're here, and that also means Evelyn and Mia will eventually see this. So hello to you two. You two continue to be great. Yeah, that's about it. Okay. Ooh, Evelyn and Mia, question for you. What's your favorite episode of Bluey? You have to decide. You can't pick one for each of you. You two have to agree on what the best episode of Bluey is. Anyway, with that said, speaking of blue, yeah, let's go ahead and get into Lightroom. It's a shot from Glacier Bay. This is the kind of side of Margerie Glacier, and there's other shots I've got where you see kind of here's another shot where you can see kind of the expanse of the glacier. Yeah, so this is Margerie Glacier. I don't know if it's the largest in the park. Maria Lacey, you're breaking my heart. You're so sweet. Happy anniversary to you too, baby. But yes, yeah. So this is I don't know if it's the largest glacier in the park. It's certainly the kind of the highlight. I believe it in and of itself is a national monument in addition to being part of the national park. For context, it goes back about 21 miles. But yeah, about 21 miles, just curving back through the mountains there. And it is height-wise, it's hard to explain. It's hard to kind of come across in any of these shots because from a distance it just looks like it's it's still smaller than the mountains. This distance from water level up to the kind of the top of this closest level is about 250 feet. It also extends under the water another 100 feet. So this thing is 350 feet tall, and what you're seeing above the water is 250 of that. For further reference, if I zoom in even more. This is a cave that is is over 10 feet tall. So that's a cave that people could go into. I don't know if people actually do. It's a national park. You follow the rules. But yes, that is a cave that humans could very easily explore, and it is tiny in the face of the glacier and the range behind it. So by the way, this peak. Which I can zoom out a little bit. This peak behind it that's going to kind of be the subject of part of the shot today. Does not have a name. As far as I can tell, this is peak number 12,606, which might just be ranked by height. There are a few mountains back here that have names. Mount John Quincy Adams is back in here somewhere. Mount Salisbury is over here. Mount Forde, Forde, is back in here somewhere. But yes, this is, that's just, so I spent a good amount of time trying to find the name of that mountain and couldn't find it. But yeah, here's the photo we're working on, that I love for several reasons. I love the reflection. I love the layers and the depth to it. Like once we start bringing the whites down here, we'll get a lot more detail in this, and we'll see separate the mountain and the glacier from the sky, and it's going to be great. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do this as, at least for starters, as an 8.5 by 11 print. Which is kind of ideal for publication. I'm going to, especially for a portrait shot, I'm going to try to find my balance right here. Something like that. Maybe crop it in a bit. I want to keep the mountain centered, more or less, without losing the impact of the glacier, and then just the kind of symmetry of it as I look at the thumbnail to see it as a... There we go. Let's go with something like that. That looks pretty good. I might move that up a bit to get the reflection more once we start defining. All right, first step, highlights down. There we go, automatically getting more. And yay, histogram, yay, shooting raw, all the stuff we can do. I talk about that way too much on the channel, but if you have any questions about any of that, please feel free to comment, and I will happily explain it again. Okay, yeah, so let's bring the blacks down a bit. Just, again, helping define what we've got. Always like to go to the clarity slider. Okay, in this one, clarity might not be the exact thing I want to start with, but maybe, we'll see. Just so you guys all know, these are the white dots in the water are icebergs. They, again, appear very small, but this is, you know, this is 250 feet, give or take. So these things are, there you go. Hey, actually, right there, it's way too pixelated to really make this a photo about them, but that, I believe, is a bunch of harbor seals hanging out on an iceberg. That is one of my shots from Glacier Bay that I've actually done very well with, was a picture of an eagle, a bald eagle, sitting on an iceberg. And yeah, it's a natural habitat for them, for the harbor seals, the sea otters, all the wildlife in Glacier Bay, and in a lot of spots like this around the world depend on the icebergs as their main habitat. That's where they primarily live. It's like imagining living your life where your main address was a series of floating houseboats. But yeah, so, and we can talk a bit about Glacier's calving as I go through this, because I do want to talk about that at the end. But anyway, so yeah, bringing the texture up, bringing the clarity up. Let's see, clarity up. Let's bring the texture up. I think I'm going to do those separately with masks, and then dehazing. Dehazing is going to be very important, but I'm going to do it separately as well. Okay, so the big thing here, I think, is masks. Let's see. Let me do a quick play with the saturation. That gets a little aggressive. What's saturation do? Saturation's even worse. Okay, we're going to do that individually. Okay, so let's start with some masks. Start with this guy. I'm also curious, if I tell this thing to select a subject, I'm curious what it's going to give me. But okay, that's pretty good. It looks like it gets the sky without getting too much of the peak. I can be pretty happy with that, and I can play with that in a second. Okay, let's do a new mask. If I tell it to select subject, I want to see what it picks. I'm very curious. No subject. Yeah, well, that makes sense. All right, so let's do a new one. Let's do an object select. What I really like is this mountain. I would really like mountain 12606, which probably is you know, in its off time stars in the mountain version of Les Mis. It's a weird, sort of deep Jean Valjean joke, so feel free to roll your eyes at me. I kind of am already. So yeah. All right, that's not too bad. A little bit of creative subtracting there, and we'll be good. Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, the subtract brush. We can remove all this. We just want the edge of that mountain. That is one of the interesting things about, and I guess I can kind of get away a little bit with keeping this edge a little bit soft. I don't think that's too much of an issue. But one of the fun things about editing mountain photos, especially photos from Alaska, is just the amount of, you know, the line between the mountain and the clouds is always kind of a weird line to draw and try to find that balance. So I'll stick with that for now. But down here, yeah, let's get off the glacier. Let's just get the mountain. That's fine. I don't know if I need the glacier separately. I think I'm going to kind of do my global adjustments and let the glacier sort of speak for itself. I don't know. We'll see. I may do some separate areas. All right, new masks. I'm just doing these in order of getting easier and easier. I want the water. So the water is pretty much just a linear gradient, maybe a little bit of trimming with the edge of the glacier there. But this is... There we go. Hey, Shelby Lynn. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Just as in terms of getting our masks. Let's start with the sky. And let's see. Do I want to do a... All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a quick... We're going to duplicate mask 3. We're going to add the sky. And then we're going to do a duplicate. And then we're going to invert it. So now we have the land, more or less. And that's cool. Shelby Lynn's making bread. That's cool. You told me about this, but it's fun to announce on stream so everyone knows how cool you are for making bread. All right, start with this guy because it's the one I'm kind of, I don't say least interested in, but it's the one that I'm like gonna potentially do the least with. How noisy is this? Is probably decently. No, that's not bad actually in terms of noise. That's actually pretty good. If I think I can just denoise this and be fine, be happy with what it's at. Oh yeah, very happy. That's fine. Color wise, I'm gonna push us a little more toward green and a little more toward blue. I want consistency across the thing. I'm gonna stick with that for now. I may adjust once I finish doing the water, but I like that. Let's bring the shadows down a bit. I can bring the blacks down a little bit, get some a little more texture in there. Good. Highlights down. Where's this mask end? This mask. Let me see the overlay. It's included in there. Okay. Yeah, that one bright section there is kind of bugging me, but I don't know if there's much I can do about it beyond just bringing down some highlights. Or even actually bringing the highlights up and letting that kind of have its own brightness is probably the better way to go. Ooh, actually bringing the exposure down wasn't bad. A little bit of that. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. Let's not do a full. Let's do negative 0.3. Do 30%. That's good. I'm happy with that. Doesn't look too noisy. That bright spot of white, I may do. Can I do a separate mask on that? Can I do a luminance range and grab that? Let's find out if it'll give me just that section. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty good. That's what I'm looking for. Let's see. So now, can I do anything about it? That's the next question. Bringing the clarity down. Can bring the dehaze down, but that's going to end up making it just really stand out in ways I don't need it to. A little bit of dehazing is not bad though. Let's see. Bring the whites down. Now it's going to turn them to gray. Highlights. We're just going to end up with some weird saturations. Probably not bad. Push a little more toward blue and toward green. Gives me a little something. I'm actually okay with that. Makes it less obtrusive, I think. If I turn it off, turn it back on. Yeah, less obtrusive. I do need to subtract a little bit because we are touching the mountain and I don't want to do that. So let me see the overlay. And let's do a subtract brush. And we'll just get all this. Let's get this all off of the mountain here. I want to have my mountain range and my glacier be their own thing. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that off of there. It doesn't have a density filter on it, so that's fine. Let's come over here. Let's get it off of this stuff. Get it off of the glacier. Get it off of some of the snow and the ice fields up there. So I know I've done glacier photos in the past. Shelby Lynn, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a delicious meal. Excellent, excellent choice. Compliments to the chef. Let's see. A little bit of bleed on there. Is that from this mask? I think it probably is. Yeah, it is. Okay, we're gonna work on that. Let's come back to here for a sec. Anyway, let's get our subtract brush going again and subtract a little more. So glaciers are, there's some misconceptions about them that I'd like to talk about as I go through this right now. The first one being that being kind of what they overall do and are. The thing that, so when snow falls up in the mountains, at first it creates snowfields, which are just, a lot of what you see up here in the mountains. Let's see. Honestly, Stephanie Burger sounds really good as well. No complaints on that one. All right, let's see the overlay here. I need to clean off my mountains a little bit as well with the sky brush. So subtract brush, and we're just gonna. So if I want to do it as a full subtract, or if I want to do kind of a density level. I think I want to do a lower density brush, maybe at like 70% or 80%, something like that. So it's a little bit, so it's not as quite a harsh a transition. Anyway, so glaciers. So snow falls in the mountains, and snow falls in the mountains. I love I keep trying to get through this, and Shelby70 keep posting interesting comments. Shelby, I love that you put you put a meal together with a theme. That makes me really happy. Anyway, yeah. So snow falls in the mountains and creates snowfields, and that's a lot of what you see. You know, looking at these mountains, that's probably a lot of, a lot of what you're getting. You know, on a mountain like this one, kind of in the foreground, these little patches here. Those are snowfields, and that's just snow has fallen in the mountains and is accumulated in certain spots. That's a snowfield. As more and more snow builds up, and it compacts and compacts and compacts, and we're talking hundreds of feet of snow. We're talking, build up that just, deepens. As you do that, you end up with an ice field, which is what a lot of people think of as a glacier. So you get an ice field. The difference between an ice field and a glacier, and they are very similar, the difference is the glacier moves. Some ice fields just stay up there and just kind of, they grow. They don't have a path out, so they grow to these massive ice fields, and then they, when the temperature warms up, they melt a bit, and water kind of gets away, but the ice field itself stays there, and then the next year it reforms. And that's how an ice field works. A glacier actually moves. A glacier has a way out, has an egress downhill, and therefore travels through the mountains. Not always to the water, often to the water. If they travel to the water, they're called a tidewater glacier. That's what Margerie is here. So a glacier and an ice field, similar composition, but the glacier is the thing that moves. So that's the difference between kind of what you might see up in the mountains here. I don't know if these are ice fields or snow fields. It's hard to judge size. Some of the bigger ones might be ice fields if they're big enough and they're long enough to get that cold and that compacted. But Margerie is the glacier that is actually moving and reaches the water. Okay, let's see how that looks if I turn off the overlay. That seems like it's better. I think that is better. That spot right there is going to give me a little bit of issue. I want to tweak that. What am I getting there? Which mask is giving me that trouble? It's got to be this one. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, cool. So let's see. I subtract a little more. Does that soften my edge? It does. That's what I needed. Just a little bit more softening on that edge. Same here. Let's clear that up a little bit. There we go. Blend our whites and our blues a little better. Same with our colors here. Let's get this edge like that. So that's gonna look. That doesn't look too bad. Let me pull this back and see. If I undo that and redo it. Actually, kind of like that. It gives a little bit of interesting detail to that cloud. I'm pretty happy with that. Let me zoom in, and now I can better assess this edge, because this guy. Let's see, without that this time, and then with it. Yeah, definitely got that. Definitely got too harsh of an edge on that, but we can adjust. Let's see. Is the clarity doing that? Did it lose the saturation change? Might do the saturation change. It's the color. That's what it was. Okay. Specifically the blues. All right, so we're going to redo the other stuff we've done. A little bit of detective work here, and that's what makes it fun. And then we will turn that off, and that should hopefully put the saturation back. Yep, which one is it? Is it clarity? Is clarity the other one giving us issues, or is it really just the color? I think it really is just the color. Why am I still getting that harsh edge? Oh, it's the whites. Okay. Let's put the whites back. Yeah, that smooths it out a little bit. I like that. And Shelby Lynn and Stephanie, you were both correct. It is definitely more fun to cook with cook with people you love and to have like fun themes and stories to tell with your food. Did you just casually mention "and the souffle" as if that's like, yeah, you know, I'll also just throw a souffle out there, like, just gonna casually compose an opera. And it's a coffee pecan souffle. That's insane. Why is this not your channel? Okay, sky looks good. Happy with sky. We move on with our lives. We move on to mountain. Mountain is getting clarity and texture all the way through. Mountain is all like kind of one of the things we come to as our subject, so we are going to give it all of its due. I'm going to push it also a little more toward green. Want to get a little more of that blue in there. Have it kind of situated as the jewel here at the tip of our little adventure, and everything else is going to get some more blue in it as well. This whole photo is going to have blue, but just in different degrees. Let's see, highlights. No, I don't need to go super high contrast on it. I can bring the darks down a little bit, but I don't want to, like, if I bring up the highlights, actually doesn't look too bad. I actually don't mind that. Let's bring those up a little bit. And I'm going to bring the contrast down a little because I don't want it to be, it doesn't need to be super, super sharp. Something like that looks really good. I think it's going to fit in really well once we finish with everything else. So that's the mountain. Mountain's done. Let's touch on the everything else. Let me try doing a quick subtract of that mountain. Let me see if I can do that because I don't need the mountain in here. I'd like to not have to like worry about it. See if I can do a quick subtract of that so I can just get everything else. Though if I can't, there's actually a pretty easy fix with that because this is going to be a lot of color work. Gotta wait for the good stuff to work because that, yeah. Big fan of the object detect AI, but it takes a second. That's pretty great, actually. We can also do a subtract brush because there's a little bit of a haze around that and I don't need it. So we're going to crank this all the way up and we're going to get rid of, let's come up here, get rid of the clouds around this thing. That's all sky. That doesn't need to be here. Get rid of that. Get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. Come right up on our edge. That's good. Let's come down here. I think there's a little bit extra down here that doesn't need to be here. Yep, look at that. This stuff right in here does not need to be there. Like I said, the line between landscape and sky often gets a little fuzzy when you're working with this, but that looks good. I'm happy with that. Let's start playing with color. Pushing it a little toward blue, a little bit toward green. This whole photo is kind of getting that treatment. I'm very happy about that. And once I've been kind of saving on doing the water because the water is going to be the thing that really, I think, really pops. So, all right, something like this. Highlights down, shadows up a bit, blacks down though. I'm also going to bring the saturation down on these guys a little bit. I don't know, we'll see. That does give us some nice contrast having them like that. Let's do this. Let's bring the saturation down, push them a little toward green. I think will help. Touch toward blue just to make them part of the landscape. Clarity up to some degree, not to that degree. Or do I want to do this with texture? I think I just want to do it with texture. I think texture is probably enough to make that rock. Highlights can come down. I'm gonna bring up the exposure a little bit though, and then I can bring the blacks down. There we go. There's something coming along there. Shadows. Yeah, you know what? Keeping those shadows down gives us a good contrast, and I do like that. So just blacks down a little bit. Leave the shadow. Bring the shadows down. There we go. Whites. No, whites could be too much. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's try. What do I want to do next? I want to try an object brush. I want to see if I can get the glacier. Let's see if this thing will give me Margerie. And theoretically, it should. Shouldn't be too impossible to get that. I'm gonna do this in a couple of different sections because there's gaps in there, and trying to tell it to bridge those gaps could be difficult. So that's what we're gonna do. Now we wait a bit. So here's another fun glacier fact as we wait for this thing to think. So usually, and if you watch me do glacier photos before, we've talked about glaciers calving, which is calving. Beautiful, excellent. We're gonna keep doing that. Which is the process of glaciers when they release icebergs and big chunks of ice fall into the water. Gonna add another object brush. And that is so often shown as like, if you want to, default picture of what global warming looks like, you see videos of glaciers calving. And while, while global warming is 1,000%, no question, affecting glaciers and doing unspeakable damage to the ecosystem and the environment, glaciers calving is not the evidence of it. It is some of the. Did you just? Oh, there we go. Cool. That's gangbusters. I love it. Glaciers calving, and you can argue that glaciers calving more than they should is evidence of it, and that is true. But what's actually the real effect of global warming on glaciers is that they the real effect of global warming on glaciers is that every year they advance and then retreat. They advance as the weather is colder and more ice is added. Tell me you got it. Tell me you got the third one and we're good. Not bad. I can fix that. Okay, cool. Subtract brush. That's fine. Actually, let's do, without the brush. Let's do it this way. Let's do an intersect. Intersect with. Let me try a color range. Tell you to intersect with that, and just get rid of the dark spots. And then invert, so we get the bright spots. Yeah, it's probably just easier to do it with a brush. So get rid of that part of the mask. There we go. Good. Anyway, yeah. So glaciers. The effect of global warming is that glaciers every year they move. They move. As they accumulate more ice and snow, they move. They move greater distances, and then when it gets warmer and the ice and snow melt a bit, they retreat back. And usually glaciers, when there's a place where glaciers are, usually it's the kind of thing where it doesn't get they don't disappear completely. At the end, at the warmest point of the year, because it's cold enough at that, even in the hottest months, that the glacier doesn't totally melt. And many of these glaciers have been around for centuries, if not millennia. But glacier, but the effect of global warming is more that is less that the glaciers are breaking off and calving and dropping chunks of ice into the water, but it's more that they are not expanding out as far as they used to. In fact, Glacier Bay used to be the entire bay used to be covered by a glacier. There used to be one glacier that covered the entirety of the bay, and then over the years it has retreated so much to the point there's now several much smaller glaciers that are also increasingly getting smaller because global warming continues to get worse. But that's but the reason we see, the reason the shots of glaciers calving became this thing is because most people hadn't seen that, and so the assumption was, oh my God, these glaciers are crumbling, something awful must be happening. Not exactly true, but so you can know that fact, but also still know that global warming is doing irreparable damage to these glaciers. Not irreparable, the planet will do what it does, but doing substantial damage to these glaciers. And just because the most common uh, example of glaciers falling apart isn't necessarily the best isn't exactly a one-to-one representation of what's happening. Why am I just yo-yoing this? I want to zoom in and get this stuff. It is isn't the best example. It is definitely still happening and 100% worth being very worried about, because not only do glaciers retreating have a substantial change to the ecosystem and to the temperature of the water and to the temperature, the life that can survive in the water. As water levels increase, the glaciers, as water temperatures increase and water levels rise, it does substantial damage to the ecosystems that currently exist there. The icebergs that come off the glaciers are also a huge part of the habitat. We talked about having the harbor seals that are hanging out on that iceberg down there. They're a huge part of that, and so that is the thing that we also, it's another reason we should be worried about losing glaciers. It's nature, as much as nature evolves, of course, and changes, and you get each ecosystem that ends gives way to another beautiful different balance, but there is still an absolute beauty in the balance of glaciers to the land around them, because they do shape the landscape, but also the animals and the habitats that exist because of them. And so losing that is not something to be taken lightly. But that looks cool, that glacier coming together like that. I think if I'm going to give everything else kind of a greenish tint. Where are my mountains? They're my mountains. If I give everything else kind of a greenish tint and I let the glacier kind of be blue, I think that'll be cool. So we give everything else kind of that greenish tint, and then we come back to our glacier and we push it more toward blue. We kind of pull it back from the green a little bit and let it get a nice gorgeous blue coming into that. That'll be very cool, I think. I think that'll be very awesome. Now clarity can kind of stay where it is. I don't want to overwhelm too much with texture. Actually, I'm going to bring the texture of the mountains down a bit. Let's reset that. Have it up a little bit, because I do like this story being about texture. But this one, the texture of the glacier is going to be the big kind of determining factor. I want to dehaze that a little bit. A little bit of dehazing actually is pretty good. It brings out the color more. And then I can brighten the shadows and bring the whites down. And that glacier can take shape for us. That's not bad. Let's check in on some of our lines here. Looking okay. I'm gonna have to do some stuff with purple. Purple I need to get rid of in this photo. But yeah, cool. Okay, let's do the water. It's kind of gonna be the thing that I think ties so much of this together. Texture in the water. I'm a huge sucker for texture in water. It's one of my favorite things. Dehaze. Yeah, I want to bring that down. All right, we're gonna saturate it up. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Gonna leave it at green. We're gonna push it a little more toward blue. Do I need to actually? The color on that is so nice already. Push it a little toward blue, or I could just darken it. Bring those shadows down a bit. Let's bring the shadows up and the blacks down. It's my usual go-to, and that seems to work really well. And then same deal, highlights up and whites down a bit. Yeah, that gives us some really, really nice stuff going on there. Do I want to dehaze anymore? Make it a little darker. I don't know. I want it to find its own balance and be part of this photo while still being, having its own identity. If I bring this up, make it a little bit less about the water, or do I bring it down to make it more about it? Come down to here and just kind of get that sky. That's better. That leads us. That water's now that V shape that the water makes. I guess peak. Yeah, the peak of the water, which is cool, leads us right up to the edge, and then we follow the glacier to the mountain and the sky. That's our way in. That looks good. I love it. All right, cool. I'm still doing global adjustments here, I think. So yeah, we can do some of that. I don't know. I don't need much. A little bit of that. Dehaze a little bit more. Is a bit of icing on the cake. That's good. Our histogram looks great. Let's come down to color for a second. Just play. Blues, if I crank up the blues, we're going to get that, which doesn't look... It looks better than I thought it was going to, but it's still a bit much. Let's bring up... If I bring up the aquas... I think the aquas are what I want to do. Bring up the aquas. Greens... I'm going to bring the greens down, actually, because that way I can differentiate. I don't know. Yeah, let's bring the greens down. I don't think we've got really any oranges or yellows or reds at play here yet. I may do something with that in a second. Purples? A little bit. I'm going to desaturate the purples and the magentas, because the only real effect they're having is on some of these lines up here. And if I bring them down, like if I bring the purples back up, yeah, you can see kind of in those lines, and I want to kind of pull those back. I'm also going to go up to my hue slider and push the purples to blue. So that'll cover, there we go. And that will smooth the whole thing out and give those little details, you know, the consistency they need. Quick question. Which of my masks is causing that line? Is it the sky one? It's probably the sky one, because it's either that or it's this. No, it's not this. It's the sky one. Okay. Real quick, sky adjustment. We're going to come up here. 10% is too much. 100% is enough. Let me see my overlay. I'm sure it's off the mountains, I bet. And okay. Yeah, probably should be on those mountains. Let's fix that. So we're going to try and add brush. Actually, I'm going to try bringing it down onto the mountains a little more. It's supposed to be off of them. Density down a bit. And let's... I kind of paint on here. That's going to give me that dark line that I don't necessarily love, but it is cleaning up the white line there, so that's helping. So let's do add brush again. Let's just quickly do something up here to create the brush, draw in an area that doesn't matter, and then we can clean up this line a bit. Little by little, there we go. Like I said, that line between mountains and sky in Alaska is always interesting. It's always a strange challenge. That line is going to dog me. Okay, you know what? Let's try a different approach. Let's subtract. Let's get a really big brush going. And we're just going to do a nice little... If we're stuck with this line, we're going to lampshade it a bit. And do that. And sort of brush us up into the sky a little bit and create kind of a gradient here that I think will help. Getting there. Definitely getting there. This corner needs it. Let's come up here a bit. Let's kind of come through here a little more. Let's do it a couple of times as it slowly starts to bring it together. That's a start. Okay, cool. That's looking, it's getting there. Let's go bigger. Let's zoom out to about 50%. I mostly just want the feathering. I just want a little bit of, there we go. Just something like that. Okay. Better. All right, now I'm gonna clean this up a little bit with an add brush, just to more selectively get those spots back in where I want them. And now, kind of the same deal, slightly smaller brush, theoretically. Now the add brush exists, I can make it smaller, and I can kind of come in at the same density and tweak that a little bit. Yeah, I can be happy about that. Next question is who's, no, that's not you. You. You need your color put back. Edge is very harsh. Bring the texture down on that spot. Even dehaze it a little bit. Something like that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's okay. That's coming together. I want to do one more thing. I want to add a brush here. I'm still gonna add a brush. Gonna bring my density density down. No, density stay down. Flow all the way up. I prefer density to flow. And then I'm going to just sort of, I gotta zoom in for this. What I'd like to do. Let me see my overlay. Yeah, what I'd like to do is just slightly include some of this stuff in there. Just again to help brighten and soften those edges. Bring the highlights up just a touch. With that being a harsh line, that'd be nice. Actually, bringing the shadows up might be the better option. Let's see. Looking at it from a wide perspective. Whites up is going to be, it's going to do that. That's bad. Shadows up a little bit. Yeah, shadows up helps smooth. It's all just in the little details. Highlights are going to stay where they are. I can bring them down a bit even, but actually bring the highlights down. Not all the way, but just enough. There we go. Okay, I'm happy now. That looks good. All right, let's go back to playing with our color sliders because we're not quite done there yet. Our color sliders I think are fine. Let's play with luminance. We don't have any orange in there yet. I might do that. Aqua. We can brighten up. I don't know if I want to do too much of it. A little bit is nice, but I really do like the moodiness of this photo. Blues, I can actually bring down a little bit. Yeah, that's leaning into the moodiness. I'm a very big fan of that. Greens, sort of in play. We're gonna bring those up. That's gonna catch kind of little bits of green on here. Happy about that. Again, yellow, non-existent, not really a thing. Purple. Brighten up the purples. A little bit of a bright spot right by the base of the mountain I think is cool. That kind of draws your eye there. And then magenta is not really having an effect. That's totally fine. Reds, y'all do anything? No, not really. I'm going to go ahead and desaturate the reds. Okay, that looks phenomenal in terms of what we started with and what we're at now. A couple more tweaks to make now that we've done color. The thing I love about this is it's always an ever-evolving process. There's my glacier. Let's bring up, let's bring the blacks up a little bit more so it stays bright. Good, excellent. Let's go to our mountains here. How do I do this? I'm gonna duplicate this mask, which is gonna look real bad for a second. We're gonna reset this mask because I just want another copy of the same thing that I can do different stuff to. So we're going to reset the mask. There we go. So that mask is now exists, but it's about to, it does nothing. There should be no effects on it. All right. So this one, I'm going to, just as a big adjustment, I'm going to push it, very hard to the wrong direction, which is good. And then we're going to, let's see. I want to keep the sky in there. Object brush, I want to keep I want to keep all that in there. What I want to do is subtract another object and try to get the glacier out of there. So we're going to subtract our glacier here. Let's see if I can get this thing to get it all in one. Let's see if it can do that. I think if I can get those mountains to be just a little bit golder. Not this is what it looks like right now is extreme, and it's not what I want it to be eventually. But if I can get those mountains to be just a little bit golder, it'll be that little bit of contrast that ties the whole thing together just beautifully. And so that's what we're gonna work on doing. Ooh yeah, look at that. That did. All right, let me see the overlay. That did a stunningly good job. Phenomenal. Okay, cool. So we have a subtract brush, which we're going to go ahead and use to get this off the water. Because my density's down, so let's turn the density back up. Let's start with that. Let's get this off the water. And this is going to be a much more subtle effect than it currently is, so I'm not too worried about it being exactly 100% perfect. And then this is easy because I've got this very nice line of this mountain right here that I can just kind of follow with my brush and get rid of everything up here. That'll be good. So let's turn the feathering down so I get kind of a sharper edge, and just right along that ridge line. It's the thing I love about Alaska is just there's so much. I love it about Maine as well with the coastline up there, but there's just such a nice. There's so much texture and so much layering and so many just gorgeous sharp edges to it that I don't know, I found it really captivating. Let's see, let's come in and get this spot right there. That's good. There we go. Those nice sharper edges. Cool. So we got just our mountains. I think that's pretty great. All right, so now let's go ahead and turn that overlay back off. Let's put this back to something closer to normal. And let's just adjust slightly. Something like that. Something like that where I can then darken them down a little bit. Even do it with contrast. Contrast might be the way to go. There we go. A little bit of that. A little bit of shadows up. A little bit of saturation. Let's push them a little bit toward purple. Blacks down. It'll be part of the story without being part of the thing. Let's see. Without, with. All right, one more thing to do. Let's go here. Let's go to our subtract brush. I'm gonna drop my density down to about 50%. I'm gonna clean off this guy because as we get further away from, there we go. So this one now in the foreground now is our focus, and the one in the background is, because it is distant, it's a little more blue. I'm going to take this brush to 75%, and I'm going to do the same thing here, so it's not the same. There we go. Can adjust the color a little bit more. Something like that. Got stuff falling over on me. Let's zoom in and... Are we catching some of these spots up here now? No, with the object subtraction, we should be fine. Let me see this mask. Yeah, we're still catching some of that. Where's my... Let's do another subtract brush. Just to clean out this stuff back up here. But that should be full power subtract brush. I don't want anything up here. Here we go. Let's get rid of all of that. There we go. So it really is just on the mountains. Everything else gets to be its beautiful self. Cool. All right. So if I turn that mask off, turn it back on. Yeah, it's a subtle effect, but it gives it a little more character, a little more personality. Let's come down here to our color sliders to see if there's any effect. Yellows are starting to play a little bit. Oranges, again, a little bit. Let's bring them up. Let's come down here to brightness because I want to. If I brighten those up, I'm now adding a little bit more detail and texture to the landscape, which is great. Cool. All right, I'm happy with this. Let's do a quick. Let's look at before and after. Voila. This went longer than planned, but for a photo like this, 100% worth it. There's your, there's your Glacier Bay shot. Go back to the library. So yeah, that's that one now. 3-star ranking, phenomenal. Let's talk for a second about Glacier's calving, just so I can pull this up. So this is a shot. I didn't actually think I got this. I thought I'd missed it, but then looking back at my photos and checking my crop, I got a decent. The moment after the glacier calves. And remember, this is the chunk that fell off of this is, remember, this thing is 250 feet high in most places. So the piece that fell off of this is the size of a school bus and a half. And so when that hits the water and it just shatters, you get this monstrous cloud of falling ice and debris, that's how icebergs are formed, and it's beautiful and haunting and gorgeous, and I want to talk about that. I'm going to do some more editing on this eventually, but yeah, this will be the end of our Glacier Bay thing for today with this photo. So I'm gonna, I think we're good to wrap it up. Let me jump us back to me, and to play us out. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of this. As always, my photography is, you can view it, if you go to erichackler.com/photography, you'll find links to both my photography portfolio as well as my Etsy store if you want to purchase prints of any of these. Various things are on sale on both my website and my Etsy store. Some things, Etsy's got a cool few cool discounts. It's got a few cool little like it's got a couple of cool like photos sold as a set that are meant to be a matched pair. And my website, my photo portfolio has some stuff that's not on my Etsy store and has a few more options if you want like large format canvas prints. But on both of them, you can order postcards, and this is my favorite thing. These postcards, one of them is a Glacier Bay shot. Actually, it's Margerie Glacier. There we go. Man, my camera's automatic focus is weird. But yeah, so there's a Glacier Bay shot. We also got Antelope Canyon, Natural Bridge, and Dream Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park. These all have a vintage style to them. They are fully functional postcards. You can get them and throw a stamp on them, connect with anybody you want. And they have a QR code on the bottom, which you cannot see, but now you can. There's a QR code on the bottom. And that QR code leads to a tracking map that you can throw your zip code in, and we will be able to see where all the postcards have gone around the world and around the country. So, with that all said, that out of the way, thank you for joining me for this this kind of longer than usual one shot, but I think in service of a photo that definitely deserves it, and we get to enjoy just not the thing I love about that photo. I'm gonna put it back on screen for a sec. Is not just the colors of it, because the colors are great, and it's so easy to just be like, oh, Alaska, all the shots we see of Alaska tend to be very desaturated, very stark kind of photos. There's still starkness to this, but I think I love about it is just you get the whole ecosystem right here with the glacier kind of in the middle, or the glacier kind of as the the element that ties it all together. It's also worth noting when you shoot raw, your photos come out a little bit softer because you can edit them and adjust them in post. And here with this shot, this is with this saturation up, this is closer to what the water in Glacier Bay National Park looks like. It is gorgeously blue. It's not totally still, but it's not tidal. Affected by tides. It's affected by glaciers calving and dropping icebergs into it and the displacement you get there. So that's what moves the water in Glacier Bay. So it is often very close to still. It is gorgeous. You get the beautiful landscapes of the mountains. You get the peaks off in the distance, and you get the glacier kind of in the center that brings it all together, and the sky, which is just gorgeous. So yeah, I love this photo because in many ways it exemplifies everything that makes Glacier Bay phenomenal to look at, and that's and to visit. So protect it, preserve it, visit it, and enjoy the hell out of it, because it being connected to this kind of thing makes us better stewards of this planet that we inhabit, along with everything else that inhabits it. All right. With that said, message, talking, photography, it's all together, it's all good, it's all done. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go on to the rest of my evening. You can go on to the rest of your day. Please enjoy it. Make something beautiful. Make something artistic. And just revel in the beauty that exists around us. It is easy to miss it, and it is so... But when we take our time to look at it, we catch moments like this. So, with that all said, stay safe, be well, and I will see you next time.